Right now, I'm feeling lost, not found. I'm drowning in the bass right now. I listen like a drug I found. Addicted to the plug right now. And I can feel your pain now. I never got the chance to explain how nothing ever quite feels the same now.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? Welcome. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. My name is Linda Kay, and this is the Real Crime Team. And we have a special guest today, Steve from True Crime Web. And you can find his link to his channel in the description below. And I'm sure my wonderful mods, hello to you, will drop the links. And I'll just let from my right side say hello on Dawn.
Hello.
And then there's our guest, Steve. And I think he's still there.
Oh, yes, I am. Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Okay. And our King the Fox.
Howdy, howdy.
And then there's True Crime Sunshine, who makes beautiful posters.
Hi, y'all.
And then there's Papa Bear, level-headed.
Hello.
Okay. Well, Steve, if you wouldn't mind just telling our audience a little bit about your background, we'd greatly appreciate that.
Sure. I'm Steve. I'm a retired law enforcement. I've spent 20 years. I started off working in the jail, went through road patrol, and then into investigations. During that, I've had training in all types of, in all disciplines of law enforcement. Did everything from the SWAT training up to becoming a state certified crime scene tech. Back before CSI was cool, and got to see the transition of before all this technology came and the organizations of how everything is approached working crime scenes. So I got to work the old school part of it, got to learn the new technologies and watched it advance and saw DNA come into the spotlight. And now we have the this thing called the internet, which is, once again, will have such an effect on law enforcement moving forward if it's used properly by law enforcement, that we can all have a great impact. And that's one of the reasons I started my channel, is so that I could come into this environment and be an ambassador for law enforcement and try to tell you the good and bad from the law enforcement perspective of what goes on out there when we work in cases. And hopefully law enforcement, some agencies already embrace it, but hopefully as we get better in the web sleuth community, that they'll embrace us even more.
Oh, I agree. I look forward to it because I think it adds so much to what we do. We are like, I guess, kind of the broadcasting for, the missing, when we get it, Arctic especially gets it, boom, it's out there. And we try to pass it along as fast as we can. And then, I'm not really personally into solving crimes. I'm just here for awareness and prevention. And my background in the wrongful convictions, I kind of know courts and DNA and that kind of stuff. So that's interesting that you were officer before DNA really pushed off. How did that affect what you did?
Oh, you want my camera on or off? It doesn't
You
matter.
can any way you want. I do it because people like to see my ugly face. But it's completely up to you.
Okay, hold on here. Let me see if I can get this thing going. There we go. Technology.
Yep, technology.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm the senior citizen on this board, I believe.
No, I think I am. They call me Grandma.
Grandpa. But back when DNA first came through, and even the APHIS system, which was an automated system, I got to see that being developed. You see, that was something that, when I started in '85, that was, we didn't even know what a computer was. And there was most certainly departments in some of the larger cities that had computer systems, but we were still, just writing warrants down in these big books that were probably, 2 feet wide and 2.5 feet long. I mean, they're just huge books, and they had thousands of warrants in them that was cross-referenced. And so that's how we served warrants back before the computers came along.
Is that where the thing goes? All that paperwork, is that where that comes from?
Yes. Nowadays, it's not so much. And I was able to see the transitions as we started moving into the digital world and the computers. And when Photoshop first came in, I was a nightmare at the department with Photoshop. There's nothing I can't do with Photoshop.
Wow, great.
And I would take everybody's family pictures and just mingle. And,
yeah, I bet. I mean, that probably really benefited the law enforcement a lot by having this fast working network. You were able to get out, bolos quicker. I mean, there's just so much more pictures and all that. I mean, I can imagine it really benefit. And DNA it's forever changing science. I love what they got going on now, like the MVAC, I think is fantastic. For pulling old info, just a little bit of DNA and making a profile.
Yeah. And some of these technologies, they're learned the good and bad from it. So that as some of the VAC comes in, that how deep and how far back does that DNA come from? Because you're getting some DNA now that may not even be, it may be pre-suspect. And so and so you've really got to be careful when they analyze this stuff. And because as we've progressed through this, we learn certain things, but it's a tool that can be used that will progress the sciences, and I can't wait to see what the next generation is. I mean, as this technology moves forward, it's exciting, and I'm looking forward to it.
Could you maybe step us through the minute somebody becomes missing? What is the first steps law enforcement does as soon as they get a call? Can you tell us how an investigation starts?
Well, it depends on the age of the person, of course. If you got teenagers and stuff, that's a different classification. But if you're talking about we'll go worst case scenario. You've got a small child, toddler, 3-year-old, 5-year-old, that being the worst case scenario, but will bring out the biggest response. That the officer gets on scene, identifies that we do have an issue. They'll do immediate search of the residence, crawl spaces, under the mattresses, closets, clothes, and gets that part out of the way, and then starts calling in the forces. They've already notified that, yes, as that call is dispatched out that we have a missing juvenile, a missing child and age, everyone starts drifting in that direction. But the first responding officer there, he's responding to a chaotic scene. You've got upset family, you got upset additional families coming in, and as they notify the additional resources are coming in, we have to identify what are the threats that would be surrounding such a thing as a missing child. Where are the major highways? Because we don't want a kid wandering through the woods, stepping out in front of a car, getting run over. So how do we control the threats that could harm the child while we look for them, and not contaminate by just doing wild searches through the woods so that the canines can't work. Then you have to identify what water sources are in a neighborhood. Where are the creeks? Where are the swimming pools? And unfortunately, that's one of the most major threats to a small child.
Right.
Is water hazards. Because, we've recovered numerous ones in my career from either creeks, lakes, ponds, swimming pools. Yeah. And so you have to go and secure them and check them first, and make sure that even after you check them, that you secure them, so that we have to man those so that we don't have a child that, while we're out searching somewhere, doesn't wander in behind us and has a tragic ending.
Right.
But as the case would progress, that, okay, we've done the initial hunt and we're trying to figure out, is it just a child that's wandered off or is it an actual abduction?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of, what
Variables.
is this? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many,
Right. It's hard to explain.
variables that are involved. And so it's quite complex and there's a lot of stuff going on all at once.
Yeah, I can imagine. I just wanted like just a first steps kind of thing, right? So we could kind of a little bit understand it. Guys, do you have any questions or something? Let me do all this talking. Well, maybe they will. Huh? Of course. Level.
Of course.
You're never quiet.
Yeah. What brought you to YouTube?
Actually, it was the Delphi murders. I had listened to, I don't know.
Yeah, you can see their names. I like them.
At the time, it was Randy. And I watched his channel just for entertainment purposes prior to Delphi. But I became aware of Delphi. I had lost track and had been busy as living life. But one day I was scanning through YouTube and I came across and Randy was talking about Delphi, and they was having a big argument. And so when I looked up the case, it was very intriguing. It had everything about a case that had turned cold that shouldn't be cold, shouldn't be a cold case. And I said, oh my goodness. And I saw such that similarities to what we're experiencing with Monkey, that there's such controversy within the web sleuth community. And so I started, I went on a couple shows. I went on Marvin Frank's show and Randy's show and started discussing the case. And people after that said, hey, why don't you start your own channel? I started getting contact. And so here I am 3 months later, or around 3 months later, and I'm in this situation here and trying to do the best I can to help as many people as I can.
I would actually like to get Steve's opinion on something, honestly, that's just been bugging me, is the case of the little boy out in Indiana that was found in the suitcase. Yes. Back in 1957, when they found the boy in the box, they did everything possible to identify that boy. It seems to me that they're not doing anything to really try to identify this boy. They put out the suitcase that he was in, but they haven't even so much as put out a forensic sketch of this boy. What do you make of that?
Now, it depends on what condition. I don't know what condition the child was within the case. And so, and how long the case been there, as, bodies decompose, it can be extremely horrible and they may not have much work with. Don't know. But there's certain people out there that have certain skill sets as far as reconstructing what a child may look like, even if they don't have anything but a skull. But like I said, I don't know what condition the child was in. I've heard some things about it. I hadn't looked into it much. But in the meantime, they most certainly would be submitting his DNA profile, and they would be doing this genealogical backtracking, and that takes a long time. But at some point, that case will be solved. It's almost an impossibility with the DNA profile that there is a mother and father to that child somewhere. And someone in that family, maybe a cousin, maybe an aunt, father, grandfather, has done some type of search for their ancestry. And so that will be, it's just a matter of time on that.
Yeah, because I know the technology's there where they can take a DNA profile and generate somewhat of a sketch of what the person would look like. So yeah. I'm wondering why they haven't even done that much so far.
And those are just averages, that if you took the average, say, European male, and they'll give you at a certain age what they look like. So, and some of it's pretty good because most of us do. We look like what the averages are. We have something that it may not be identical to us, but it most certainly look like some of our relatives or cousins or otherwise. But yeah, some of that SNP DNA stuff and the technologies that's coming, absolutely amazing. But I don't know. I've got to look into that a little bit more as far as that suitcase thing. And I thought they was making some progress on it, but evidently not.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it, Steve. I just wanted your input on it.
Okay, no, absolutely, and but I think that it's being worked. But like I said, I don't know how long it takes all that genealogy, because those guys are some researchers. I don't know if you've ever seen and let them and understand how they progress and go down through the family trees. But it's absolutely amazing.
That's what I forgot the word. Is it called victimology?
Victimology is where you study the victim that of a known victim.
Yeah. And then what do you call it when you're studying somebody that you think is a suspect?
Well, you have your suspect profiles, you have your criminal profiles.
Okay. That was the word I was trying to get out, the victimology, earlier on my show, and it threw me off. I couldn't even think of the name. I was in the heat of the moment.
But there's so many different studies that you have to, that when investigators get there, of course, they're most importantly is that victimology. At what point did that person, regardless of age, cross paths with that predator? And what habits did they have that would make them be endangered? So you have those. Then you have your geographical analysis of how, and that's something I touched on last night, was about what is the likelihood of a crime occurring in a certain area, and what were the pre-occurring crimes, what was going on in the neighborhood at the time, and you can do profiles on that. Then you have to look at what are the suspect profiles that would address certain issues, abductions versus kidnappings. And so there's a lot going into it. There's a lot of, far greater trained individual out there than I. I was blessed enough in my career to go and I've seen some absolutely brilliant investigators, Sherlock Holmes of 2020, that's just absolutely amazing how brilliant some of these people are. Then, of course, now we have lab work, which there's a lot of good people in there also.
Yeah. And thank you for helping me understand some more information in the Michael Vaughn case. It's greatly appreciated. I needed to understand things from a law enforcement perspective, and you surely helped me. I think I was on the right track, but definitely speaking with you behind scenes was definitely a help.
Well, it's basically coming down to everyone, everybody communicates every day, and communications is nothing but interviews. Everybody interviews everyone else. How are you doing this morning? That's the same thing. It comes to, it's human nature, and naturally we are inquisitive of things going on in people's lives. It's just common sense, and everybody has an agenda in life, and in the profiling world, which I was lucky enough to go through some training and profiling that allowed me to look at and understand what some agendas are and how people operate and the thought processes of certain individuals.
Yeah, I think you add so much to our community looking at it. I mean, you're giving exactly what you did or your view and procedure. And I think that's really important for a lot of people to know, because we really don't know. We're not there. We have no idea what we hear or whatever. Like the community I was in, I have learned, procedure, investigation, the procedure of the investigation. Like you were saying about that knife you really want to get to, but there's a point when you get there. You have to point where the crime scene starts. Okay, then you have to photograph everything and take every bit of evidence and go over that with a fine-tooth comb before you can even make those steps to that knife. Oh, wow. And so A lot of people don't understand that if they, just the regular person, So I think it's great to have you on board to give us a hand. That's why I asked you, does law enforcement clear or, anybody? Because I've been saying they don't until the end of an investigation. But like you said, there's a lot of variables in an
Yes.
investigation, and it depends on the situation. So it's never the same. I mean,
Oh, no.
right.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. But like I said, it's just natural human um, um, nature that as an investigator goes through a crime, that he's going to be looking at certain individuals, and he'll have a bias that, oh, that individual is cleared. As far as it being recognized by a court of law, that may not be the case, but uh, you just, you have to prioritize, where is this next individual you're looking at? Where are they on the food chain? How likely are they the perpetrator or person of interest? And as they progress and go up that food chain as being the predator,
Mhm.
that as you look at them, you analyze information, that, there's some people that have absolutely great alibis, no way in the world that they were involved. And so, of course, they're automatically off that. But it's, you try to narrow that field, get that field down to something that's manageable. And you may have multiple teams that's looking at different people, is the ideal way of approaching it. But sometimes smaller departments don't have it. Although now the CART, and when the FBI has come in here, and the advancements of how agencies can work together has progressed, that where it is it's on a faster pace, and you can cover more ground far quicker than what you used to be able to.
Right. Could you explain what CART is to the audience?
It's where the group, the FBI came out and said that agencies response team that can come in, they'll organize, and they have a structured environment of how they create everyone and all the agencies to one path and organization, that we have a man in charge that understands how to organize the investigators, organize communications, news releases. There's teams of people that prior to this ability to organize, and this response team that comes in, that departments were pretty well left on their own. And this is even, especially pre internet. But now that we have the internet, and the FBI's come in and has organized all these agencies working together, setting up these training seminars that allows them to understand how to structure, like Homeland Security, the training field of what they use with Homeland Security about coming in and working hurricanes. It's not so much that they're specialized in hurricanes, but it's such a ability for them to come in and show and work out the logistics of getting so many different agencies to come together for just a natural disaster. But it's the same on a smaller scale of getting all these agencies to work together on a abduction, murder, whatever the crime may be. And it's just a matter of everybody working out and being, everything logistically, all these agencies able to work together and have a chain of command.
Right. I only have one other question for you, and I'm going to let the team have you. But I would like to, a lot of people don't know, but the FBI can only be called in, am I correct, if the agency calls them in? They don't just come in?
No, they make a call and say, hey, do y'all need us? You have the sovereignties of the states. The FBI has federal laws, states. Each state is independent and has its own sovereignty. And so FBI agents and any of the federal agents just don't have jurisdictions within a state. But they won't turn you down. And in this day and age, why would you turn down anyone that's trying to help you?
Exactly. I feel the same way. Go ahead, guys.
We pay taxes for that.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm leaving. I'm going to be quiet, and you guys go ahead.
Hey, Steve, it's Joe. So from my end of things, I like to look at the red flags and especially identify the high risk lifestyle of what can lead to crime, because I lived on the other side of the law, and how can I use my criminal experience to help prevent things like that and, future tragedies.
Okay. Excellent. 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 You take what you did in your criminal life. You knew how to pick out certain victims or whatever. I don't know what type of crime you were in, but let's say that burglars, they know how to ride through a neighborhood and look at a house and tell, and they profile. We have law enforcement profilers, but criminals, predators are the exact same thing. They are profilers.
Yeah.
Because if you don't profile what type of residence you prefer to go into that's unoccupied, if you just go down the street and kick open the door, you're going to run into someone that eventually is going to make you horizontal. And so use those, profiling skills, because all of them do it. Just like you can ride through a neighborhood. Anyone can do this, regardless if you're a good guy or bad guy. And you can tell where the kids live. What toys are out
sure.
there? What age are they? Do we have a basketball goal that's at the full height sitting in the driveway? Do we have sidewalk chalk on the sidewalk? And it's scary, that when you look at this, and we all have this ability to profile, or someone comes into your house, what pictures are on the refrigerator, what attachments are. You can tell so much. But the criminals profile, they've done great studies, when they came up with the mine hunters and all this movie stuff, and about John Douglas and all how they profile. Criminals been doing it forever, and predators do it forever. It doesn't matter what species or animal you are. You have your hunting grounds, and humans are the same thing. We're predators, and we have hunting grounds. And some predators prefer certain victims, and you just got to identify if you're looking for a certain predator, where are they going to go? And I caught a lot of predators in my life, and most certainly because I'm a predator. In law enforcement, I was a manhunter.
Sure.
Enjoyed it.
And I picked up a lot of prison to me was, and I was only in a year, but prison to me was almost like a people watch session,
Yes.
where I would just sit back and, mind my own business, but I would be watching everything. And it's the same thing, same way that I do online. And, it just even in day-to-day life, I watch my surroundings.
Yes.
And I think that's really one big thing that I can point out is, watch your surroundings. What's around you? What are you putting yourself vulnerable to?
Yes.
So
you profile. That's all you're doing. You're profiling. I mean, it's second nature to some people. Some people it's not. They live in a world of, they can't get out of their device's screen that they're punching so much that they open themselves up to every thing. And then, like I said, just your whole house, what's in the yard can be profiled. And like I said, I used to do it because I drive through neighborhoods and I say, okay, which houses here can be burglarized? What are the work habits in this subdivision? Because most certainly not everybody goes to work at the same time, but some parts, that's how come most burglaries happen during daylight hours, because
and predators have nothing but time on their hands to sit and think about things like that. So, that's what they do, so yeah. That's a very good question. Got any more?
Well, and now they're not just profiling your house and stuff; they're profiling your Facebook profiles and stuff too. I can't count the number of parents that are sitting there posting stuff like their children's school photos that have the entire class, and it's got a plaque in front of it that says Mrs. So and So's class, the school's name, and everything else. is like an open invitation for these predators to know everything about your child. And I think it's something that we need to make parents more aware of, that you should not ever put that type of information out on your social media.
Yeah, there, just in that, Steve, I don't know if you saw it, but there was a attempted kidnapping at an Ohio school from inside the school at an open house. This guy went in, posed as a parent, um, and made it all the way to the kindergarten classroom, saw the girl's name and photo on the outside of the classroom, and went in and sat at her desk and was planning on giving her a drug-laced starburst.
Oh,
So, and then, yeah, he admits to it, and then carrying her out when she passes out.
oh,
And,
yeah,
it's like, oh my goodness, we can't put anything out there like that anymore,
Oh yeah, predators they hunt what they like,
Yeah.
and they'll go to any extreme to do that. And Ted Bundy did it. Um, some of these serial killers that BTK was. He had numerous persons that he would identify and track all at the same time. And so there's these super predators out there, and then you have these predators that risk to them is part of their fantasy. Some of the psychological profile of some of these animals is that not only is it the abduction of the child, but it's what makes them and drives them to do certain things to obtain it is part of the hunt for them. And it just depends what level they're on. That it's absolutely disturbing.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
for sure.
is.
One thing that I was just thinking about, and Arctic, when he said that about Facebook, is the fact that online predators, they profile too, because they're looking, to, let's say they're in a Discord room. They're looking for the vulnerable, maybe somebody who is shy, um,
Or somebody who talks about trouble at home.
right? Talks about trouble at home. Then they happen to get into their DMs and sweet talk them and, oh, go with me. We'll get together, we'll get married, and this, that, and the other.
Yeah,
And then we've seen the countless of runaways that are technically abductions, in my opinion.
yeah. It's hard to with the internet to tell because they can act like a child through a keyboard, or they can act
Yeah.
that child's age through a keyboard. I mean, so it's hard to tell who your child's talking to you unless you know them personally. So I find it, like, I mean, I don't tell anybody how to run their thing, but my daughter and her children, she doesn't allow them to be on any internet without strong parental settings, and certain, she watches over. She's only 9 years old, so she watches over her, and she doesn't allow her to do that. And hopefully she'll continue that, and also tell her about stranger danger and things like that. And that's one thing I wanted to ask you. What do you think is the best way to tell a young child under the age of, say, 12 about stranger danger without making them so scared? Because the COVID made kids scared to go out, and they're being home, and so they have this social thing that's made them scared of the public.
Well, and I don't, you most certainly have to bring it up, and every parent is going to bring it up in whatever how they think that their child will accept it. And children's, emotional growth, you have to scare them because and make them aware. But there's a fine line there also, because you don't want to harm them. And I don't know what this COVID business is going to do to our whole generation of children that have lost some of these social skills, which the internet is destroying it also.
Yeah.
So many people are losing the ability to debate issues and communicate and talk. It's absolutely heartbreaking. I mean, you used to be able to go to a barbershop, sit down, and you listen to different generations discuss the times and watch them debate. Same in courtroom. You can go to a courtroom. That's some of the greatest debaters in the world are these attorneys and the judges. and we as a society have lost that ability now.
Yeah, the
And,
face to face.
but being able to make these children understand, up to a certain age, I have a grandson. My daughter most certainly has made him aware um, of stranger danger. A lot of these shows address these issues. And what's the best way? I really couldn't tell you. I was so focused and I knew so many hazards and so many threats out there that, I protected my child and, tried to be an observant parent without imposing on their natural growth is extremely hard to do, but you have to. Okay, go live your life, go play with your friends, and try to maintain a distance so they can grow, but you can also ensure their security is a hard line to go. And some of us are successful, some of us are not.
Yeah.
With my daughter, ever since my son just turned 17, but my daughter is 11, and I've noticed that through being on YouTube and on social media again in general, I've become much more observant of what she's doing, where she's doing it, and who she's either communicating with, or I've always got my eyes on that child.
Oh yeah, have to.
Yeah.
You only get one chance at them. That the wrong predator gets, and it's over. It's done.
My question's kind of off subject, Steve. It's
Absolutely.
Christy, True Crime Sunshine, everybody. We do run into a lot in chats, and when you're on panel and you're doing your lives, a lot of people just, civilian wise, they rely so much on polygraph. Can you, from a law perspective, explain to people exactly what a polygraph is as far as a tool for investigation?
Well, there's new technologies in polygraphs, and they're developing even more of where they can actually even look at the brain waves and things. Or as that progresses, that's going to be exciting of where it's going to do.
Brain fingerprinting.
Oh,
Right.
and
Yeah.
then you
I
had
know about that.
you had the voice analysis, the stress factors. The old polygraph that everyone based everything on is the old one that had the little arm on it that did the little ticker and draw those lines of.
Yeah.
And
Quick meter.
Yeah, okay. Well, I was watching Level. He was pointing at something.
He's just going with the ticker. Yeah.
Yeah. And but can certain people beat those? Absolutely. And that's how come in court, they, some people waive that you can go in there that when you performing a polygraph on someone and you can have them sign that it can be used in court. Some people do that. And some people will take a polygraph and they'll sign it and say, yeah, whatever the results are, I'll live by. I would never do that for the fact that polygraphs can be wrong.
You can be nervous. And yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I get nervous in public and I have anxiety as it is. So that might set that off. And, and I don't want to be, but that brain fingerprinting thing is kind of interesting. And I'll tell you, I've seen it work. So in the wrongful convictions, I've seen it work. They actually used it on Stephen Avery. And that's a case I was following for 5 or 6 years almost now. So that's really interesting. And I can't wait till they can develop that too, because they've actually caught predators through that. And I think it's great. I mean, I just can't wait for the technology to get up there in that.
And at some point it will be accepted within the courts. Like I said, when when you compare that as in photography, that when we transitioned from the old 35 millimeter cameras into the digital world, I would take thousands of pictures, and even with a digital camera, as it advanced, you couldn't use that in the early years of when it first came in, for the fact there was no way to determine is that the true image, because you could go in there with people with my skill sets and absolutely do whatever you wanted to with them.
Yeah.
And so, of course, as technologies came in there and was able to verify that nothing had been changed, and they created these new programs to protect and make sure it wasn't manipulated. But and as the polygraphs move forward, that's what it will be. But most of the times, courts won't recognize a polygraph, even if you fail it, unless you sign certain waivers. And I've known people beat it. I've known people that told me they beat a polygraph. And the sad part of law enforcement is that when law enforcement looks at a polygraph, and it always aggravated me that some officers would perform a polygraph on someone, and if it said they were lying, they were all for it. But every time the polygrapher would come out and say that, oh, they're telling the truth, or they would go, well, they beat the polygraph. You can't have it both ways. Not everybody that beats a polygraph is lying, but that was their mindset, and I never agreed with that.
Yeah.
I used it a few times to get confessions and stuff because some people can't take the pressure, and so it is.
And
a
you can
tool
tell
for
that by
me.
profiling if they could take the pressure or not, correct? I mean, by just spending some time with them in a room and being a profiler, you can pretty much tell. That's another thing. Do you find that habits that people have really help solve crimes? Like somebody has a habit, they go to the store every day, or they go to the same way at work. Do you think that helps a lot?
Oh, absolutely. It's just like I say, when you do the victimology, you know what the victim was doing, but when you do the criminal profiling, or you're doing that analysis of what were their daily habits and why did they change those daily habits. Everything is evidence in our lives. We're humans, and as this animal, we do certain things every day.
Yeah.
You know, that if you went back and did a calendar for 30 days, you're going to see that you cash your check at a certain location at a certain time. You buy groceries. What groceries do you buy? You buy the same groceries. I mean,
You drink coffee same time, you wake up same. Yeah, I mean, as you get older, you have these habits you can't even get out of. I mean, like I wake up at 5 o'clock without an alarm clock. It's just like boom, so it's crazy. But Level, can you take over for a minute? Because my dog has to go potty. I'm sorry, excuse me.
Problem. I was getting somebody a link for a show. That's funny that they brought up that question about what did you tell me yesterday on the phone? Humans are creatures of habit.
absolutely.
Yeah. And that's something to remember in any case that you're covering. So Sluggish, I know you're working a case right now that's dear to your heart, and humans are creatures of habit. So just remember that when you're helping that family you're helping.
And, and criminals are creatures of habits. The offenders, when they're out there doing certain things, and that they go out there, and some of them are very good at profiling, some of them not so much. And you can usually tell by the criminal history who the good criminals are and the ones that are not so much, because how much probation they have, how often they're in court. I've dealt with some real winners out there that, and you have different types of criminals. You have those that are organized, and you have the disorganized ones. And then you have some that are mixed, that sometimes when certain pressures are applied, they go from being organized to disorganized in a flash. And so, but all of that is just part of crime.
So real quick, so people understand. So as an investigator or as a detective, I know this because I speak with you, but the audience doesn't know this. So like here, covering cases on the internet, putting the face out there, and then trying to figure out the habits or trying to figure out what's going on. Everybody explain to them how Steve loves rabbit holes, and every detective has to take speculation and then prove it a fact or not a fact. And just like YouTubers do. And it's important for people to see it from a law enforcement side.
Well, when you're given a case and it's unknown of what the motive is, you may know what the victim is, and you know who the victim is, and so you've got that victimology. But sometimes you don't know exactly what the motive is, and so now you're cast down this rabbit hole that we're doing is this a drug-related crime? And so you send that team out that they're going to go down that rabbit hole of where could this person do, what's in their system. When we start getting data back from the autopsies, or say if it's a murder, what's in their system, what location was the body found, was there an abduction, then body found somewhere, what was the crime profile of the area they were in. And so you have certain rabbit holes you'll go down. And what was the nightlife of, are we looking at maybe a serial offender? And so you'll send investigators to go out there that if you have any evidence leading to that this person might be the victim of a serial offender, or is it a domestic issue? Is this person the victim of some type of domestic crime? And all of these, one investigator can handle it, but he has to go in with so many different avenues, and may not be able to devote enough time to establish that it is correct, that this rabbit hole is one to be in, or the other one is. And so that's how come in the perfect world, you'll have multiple teams and you'll assign them certain rabbit holes. They'll live in it until they either prove or disprove that thought process, or that link down that rabbit hole. Is it connected or not?
Anybody else got questions over here? Arctic, you're awfully quiet for such a big voice over there.
Well, one of the questions I have is, in covering these missing persons cases, you talked earlier about how you treat, the younger kids different than you do the teenagers or the adults. Why isn't that not all children are taken with the same sense of urgency? And why is it that it seems like anyone over the age of 12 seems that they automatically get classified as a runaway?
And that would have to deal with the victimology and what the parents relay, and being able to go out there and pull up their phone histories, which is a blessing now that if law enforcement addresses it properly. Plus, what is the call status of how many times have we responded to that residence? What do we know about that family? And are certain families higher maintenance than others in the law enforcement view? That there's certain households that we used to go to, it wasn't uncommon to be at that residence 2 or 3 times a week for multiple different types of crimes and issues. And you can only respond to so many calls, because it's not just one residence. A department, you may have one officer per 5,000 people, or 3,000 people, or 10,000 people. And so there's multiple calls going on that. And it's a matter of prioritizing, and what, does that child have a past history of runaway? Does that child have certain things? And it's just a matter of weighing it. And is law enforcement wrong sometimes? Absolutely. But not most of the time, but there's a lot of time they're absolutely right on it too.
Well, it's my perspective is that in today's digital age, where you've got these teenagers and they're playing Roblox, they're playing Fortnite, they're in a prime position to be groomed by predators. And I think from what I have seen in covering these cases, a lot of the cases that have been deemed runaway cases have later turned out to be grooming cases where these children were groomed by an adult online. And so I think it's pertinent, and I get what you're saying. Obviously, if the same child has run away 10 times, I get that. But at the same time, I think that we need to start taking some of these cases with a far more important sense of urgency, because not everything is a runaway situation. And these kids that, statistically speaking, the statistics are out there. A runaway is more likely to be trafficked than a child that was abducted.
Absolutely. Humans, we're going to survive. And a child that has the ability to understand certain ways that I have to eat at a certain time, and I'm going to live a certain lifestyle, that if they're on the streets, will they use, is prostitution a possibility being groomed and being taken by some one that is going to traffic? The risk is extremely high. And I agree with you. And what is the final answer on that? I don't know what it will be. I have no idea, because there's such, argument right now. How is law enforcement, you have these people that want to defund the police, but you also have these people that say that, well, you're not doing your job. And both arguments, and the right answer is somewhere in there between how police believes that they're doing their job and how public believes law enforcement's doing their job. And it's somewhere in the middle. And how will we ever hit that perfect ground? I couldn't tell you. I'm not that smart.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly there. I don't think the answer is defunding the police at all. I think the answer is to give more up training, to try to teach more compassion, and maybe even include a special division just for community outreach and have those liaisons go with these officers to some of the things that they're investigating.
And it's a matter of being the resources available. And, for what we pay our government, you think that would be something that every department could do, but it's not. The resources just to be able to, in some of these communities, some of these big cities, there's so many children, that when you look at the census information and how many officers can respond and where do you want to focus your preventive, proactive commitments and personnel to rather being a reactive department. And, people argue both ways. How proactive should law enforcement be and how reactive should they be? And once again, it's just open to debate and it's not trying to downgrade what law enforcement does, but we as law enforcement, we get hardened. In my 20 years of working with in law enforcement, I never once had anyone ever call me with good news that, hey, guess what? Greatest thing in the world happened to me today.
Yeah.
I was always contacted by really good families, really good people that were either victimized in some shape, form, or fashion. And so you become, you
kind of like a doctor,
conditioned, and you see that. I remember the first meal I went and had with my wife at a function after I retired. I sat there with a group of 10 people, and the worst thing that had happened to any of these 10 people that week, one guy's lawnmower didn't start. and I thought, this is the world of what happened to these people, because for law enforcement, the worst thing that happened that week, I could give you a list of, and law enforcement, we hang around other law enforcement officers. And so we always are constantly talking about, this is what's there. And it messes up some people it doesn't. Some people can deal with it. Some people can't. But not taking up for law enforcement. I was paid good money to listen to the hardships and face the dangers of what these good people was coming after them.
Mm-hmm.
That if there was a predator coming to your house, I was paid to stop that predator.
Yeah.
And I did it to the best of my ability.
So you're not like the sensitive person, right? Because like a doctor who cuts open people all day long or saves people's lives, they become very clinical. It's, and I can understand that. Thank you, Sully. We love you, Sully. We love you. I'm going to take some questions from the audience, if you don't mind.
Can I ask one question first?
Okay, great.
You don't have to answer this. Do you, by being in law enforcement and seeing what you see, do you have PTSD, or do the cases affect you differently, or you've done it long enough that you've kind of figured out how to mentally manage the things that you've seen? And you don't have to answer.
No, no problem. I was a sniper. Certain mental capacities and how you look upon life is that in that job and skill set that you have to sit there and you determine and you plan a homicide, a justifiable homicide. And so, but you're doing it not to take a life, you're doing it to save a life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I was raised on a farm, and we process, and I think that certain peoples and certain personalities are better adjusted for law enforcement than others. But we processed our own animals for survival when I was from the earliest time. My dad butchered cows, hogs, whatever. So blood is nothing that ever affected me. And then when I got my training in law enforcement, became a crime scene person, I saw all the death in the world. But even working in the jail, when you had these people that would take their life in a jail environment, or you're on the road and you're responding to these traffic accidents, or you're responding to these people that had decided to end their life, or natural deaths. I mean, in your career in law enforcement, you're going to see hundreds of individuals. Some people can handle it, some people can't. You'd have to ask Mrs. Steve how well adjusted I am, but
you seem pretty stable to me. But you're right, because like I'm in the farm country, so I see that. I've seen it. I butchered chickens. I've done all that. So blood does not affect me. No. But as I'm older now, I'm very emotional. So I don't know if that's just a woman thing or what it is, but I find myself really very emotional. Where back in the day, I mean, I probably could have been a cop and done all that stuff, but I don't think I could do it now.
And I'm sure that there's a lot of officers out there that suffer a lot of different things. I probably should have been killed at least 6 or 7 times in my career, easily killed. And I just survived by the grace of God and
skill. Knowledge.
I got lucky a time or two. I would tell you, I got lucky a time or two. And, I was hurt numerous times in my career, but I was paid to take those risks.
Right.
And I took those risks.
Yeah. How does, I guess I would have to ask your wife, but every day you put on that badge and you go out there and your life might end at any minute. I mean, does that even cross your mind, or you just got that survival in you? I'm here to do a job.
No, I never once went to work thinking I would ever die.
Good.
Even when I was on that wall and we would go in, and I was fortunate enough to be part of a couple of hostage rescues of children that were being held by family members at gunpoint.
Wow.
And breaching those doors and going down that choke point and breaching another door. And you only have, that these people may be armed with, and were armed with high-powered rifles, that as you go down through there, that you are a part of a team. You've got one purpose in life, and that's to save that child. And you look at what happened recently at Uvalde, and it just, I don't understand that at all. It just angers me. But, I just don't understand the mentality of some officers. But that it never once entered my mind as we went down there, and I was part of say on some of these entry teams, a 5-man team, that you're going down these choke points and you're going to be facing someone. And this is an age that we don't have all the equipment and all the best equipment and vests and things that they have now. But you'll face those dangers. And even doing that, I thought, well, if I get shot here, that we got an ambulance sitting outside, they'll get to me and get me to the hospital. As long as I don't bleed to death, I'll survive. And that's the biggest issue about if you get in a gun battle is bleeding to death. It's, if you take one to the head or heart, it doesn't mean you're going to die.
I'm trying to see if there's any question. Hi, Prissy Penny. Nice to see you. See if there's any questions. I know Teresa had one, but it was so far up there. But I do remember her question, and her question was, is there a certain way to handle somebody who has very high anxiety during a lie detector test?
Everybody claims that. That's up to the polygraphers will try to, they'll go through a questionnaire of what's going to happen and tell them and advise them that certain conditions aren't going to affect the results. And, you know, there's special chairs for polygraph that ensures that this person is made as comfortable as possible. I never even knew that until our department had to buy a polygrapher chair when we hired a full-time polygrapher that retired from the GBI. And I thought that's the most amazing thing in the world, that it all comes down to how comfortable we can make that person feel during that polygraph. And so, you know, everybody says, oh, I'm nervous, or I'm on medications, which is a thing that the polygrapher has to weigh. Can we conduct this polygraph today? Or and you'd be amazed at how many people take drugs. Well, you probably wouldn't be amazed, but the ones that are trying to deceive, they most often are drugged up on something.
Yeah, that's another issue we have with so many drugs, and you don't know. I mean, you don't know their psychological state, and you just don't know. Some officers are not trained in that, and they don't know how to handle it. I've seen that in my own state, and I'm in Minnesota, so you know what goes on here. You've heard of things that go on in Minnesota. We had one bad cop, and unfortunately, one officer who had just joined the team happened to be with that George Floyd guy, with Chavez. And he ended up, and he was a good police officer. He was just doing what he was told. And that ended up ruining his career. And that breaks my heart, because we do need good officers. And he was the only one that was saying, hey, this is going on. We need to stop. And he said, stand your ground. You have to listen to your team leader, I guess. I don't know what you call him, man in charge. And that's very sad that 2 months into the job, just fresh out of the academy, and he doesn't even have a chance. So it is sad. So good officers do go down by bad officers. Right. And there is only one bad officer that made all of Minneapolis look terrible, and burning down our police station and the riots. And I've never been through that. And that was extremely scary for me. I don't live in Minneapolis, but I live in St. Paul, and it came over on this end, and hearing helicopters and seeing, the National Guard and their tanks and stuff go down your street is not a normal thing. And that's very scary. So, everybody in here is saying so much respect for you. Thank you. It's an honor for you to be here. We're all very appreciative. I don't want to keep you. I know you've been.
No, I'm here as long as y'all want, whatever you're.
Okay, I just don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to.
Hey, checking.
How do I keep asking?
Yeah, there you go.
The right questions.
So I'm gonna answer that from my perspective, and then we'll let Steve answer it. So my perspective is this, and Steve can tell me that I'm like crazy, but so logically thinking, how do you know you're asking the right questions on a polygraph? There's a form of questions that they ask to get a baseline. So, and then the polygraph is done based off of that baseline. So if you're lying the whole time, the polygraph will pick up if you don't have to lie the whole time during it. But I don't understand how Candace and Grandis passed. That's not necessarily true if they passed or not, because I'm going to say it, law enforcement is able to tell you, hey, checking convictions, you passed your polygraph, when she really didn't. Or maybe she did pass it and they told her that she failed it.
The polygraph person in Brendan Dassey told him that he lied and he didn't pass, and he did. And we didn't find out for 10 years.
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, and when the polygraphs, like you said, they do the baseline. So they'll have something to compare to. But also that you can't go into multiple subjects like with the investigation of and change that. The questions are very specific of, did you harm, say if you, with her, it would have been, did you harm her on such and such date? Had you planned to harm her? And it would all be focused on just one line of questioning. They don't go in there and do multiple different types of crimes. Like, do you do drugs? Do you do this? Didn't you and so-and-so burglarize they don't mix. And so whatever the line of questioning for that polygraph for that day, because they may come back with another polygraph for another line of questioning. I don't know which one they did, don't know that much about that case. I know some of it, and I know that it is highly debated, but I know very little about it also.
Is it true that law enforcement, they can tell you that that you passed when you didn't pass?
Law enforcement will lie to you.
Yeah, they can. They'll lie to you. I know that.
Well, that's my point. So in the Michael Vaughn case, there was hearsay that Tyler passed, Tyler didn't pass, Brandy passed, Brandy didn't pass, and they can lie to you in order to get more information out of you.
Certain lies are
known.
Yeah, certain lies can be, but some lies can't be, and you can't be, telling them certain things to get a confession. But there's certain ways that we have your fingerprints, we have your DNA.
We know this story already. We just need to hear it,
And I wasn't so much into the lies and stuff about that, for the fact that if you go in there and say, I've got your fingerprints for a burglar, or for I've got your fingerprints on the murder weapon and on the gun, but he wasn't holding the gun, he was holding the knife. And
so you
then,
would put it like,
then the guy knows that, oh, you don't know nothing.
Well, wouldn't you put it like, well, what happens if we have your DNA there? I think we have your DNA. That's how you more or less put it, right? Without
Absolutely,
putting it on
because
a specific...
nobody knows about the DNA.
Right,
you shed constantly hairs, spit, body fluid, all the time.
Yeah. I mean, touching, shaking hands. I've seen it.
Skin cells. Yeah.
Yeah, walking by on your shirt. Fibers, dog hairs, they can tell. I mean, that's evidence. Dog hairs, they've busted people from a dog for a murder because the dog that the person had hairs in the blanket that they had found on the dead person. So, there's all kinds. Listen, when you walk by something, just know your DNA is everywhere you go. Even if you wash your hands, you'd have to be in a hazmatic suit the whole day, not get anything anywhere, right? And even then, breathing, right? Yeah. So yeah. Any more questions, guys?
Let's touch on the Amber Alert. So I don't know if you remember our conversation a week ago or whatever. We have a Amber Alert petition, which is a great thing. Amber Alert, there's issues with Amber Alerts and stuff, but I want Steve to tell the rest of my team from his mouth what he told me about and you don't have to go into the government stuff like you did with me, but you can just explain the gist of what you told me.
Well, whenever you involve the government with the regulations and oversights, and you start saying that certain people have to read and go by these rules, people will read those rules, and sometimes they'll take them literally that this is the only time. And so when you bring in that bureaucracy, government is going to fail, and it has with Amber Alert. And you can go in and you can try to fight that. But we have the technologies now in this internet communication world, of whereas we have the exact same thing and probably even superior to what Amber Alert could ever be. Not saying that we shouldn't change it, but let's not rely upon our the unification and getting everything lined up for Amber, that it may still fail even regardless of how they address those issues. But why, that we have so much platforms and stuff that if we unify and we come to and create, like with all the platforms out there, that we can get the word out just as fast and quickly. And that's what I admire about all these creators, everyone on this panel, that when I go in there and I see how much data y'all have every day, sort of like what I did with Cyclops, that I figured out a way of getting all my volunteers to send me missing people. And whereas we can use it to locate clusters of children that may be preyed upon and have that information that they're missing where anyone can go out there and look at it. And in that database in the last 3 months, I've got thousands of children's names on it. But and also able to use it for research to see if there's clusters and predators in certain areas. But we should be able to, and it's not that it's not a good thing trying to get the government to change, but we also have to figure out how we can unify and work together to have the same, if not better, effect, and put our efforts more, in my personal opinion, towards that resource.
So the conversation went like this. Steve goes, how many people can you reach within 5 minutes on a missing persons poster? That's what he said. And I said, I don't know. It took me less than 30 minutes. I think it was 15 minutes, and I tagged every state. 15 posts on a Twitter feed, and I got Monkey's name across 50 states in less than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing I'm saying. And that's just one man. And just think that, and that's the same thing that what the government did when they started getting all these teams together at different agencies. If we view ourselves as a different agency and we look at, I'm still a small channel. I'm growing, but my footprint is getting bigger. But for every person that subs to me, that when I ring the bell, I can get it out there to right now my 1,800 and something people. And when you look at the everyone aggregate amount, then is soon you're into the thousands and the hundreds of thousands within a matter of minutes.
That's the key. The key is to get people, I've got 3,400 subs right now. If even half of them would share those videos out, that's great. It raises awareness, and then more people share from there. The key is getting people to be proactive and to share the information out, because everyone wants to bitch about the system being broken, but it seems like no one wants to take a second of their time to help fix the problem.
Yeah. And it is. I mean, we live in such a fast-paced world, and I'm like I said, I've watched True Crime Sunshine, and reach out and watch her shows and how she approaches stuff, and I'm entertained with art. And the newest one to me is Joe. I just now been exposed to her recently, and it's absolutely amazing. And I most certainly try to advance trying to get each of them. And when I highlight a new channel, I'm trying to get them up to that 500 community page, so that they can have a larger and bigger imprint and impact on getting the messages out.
Yeah, like Sluggy, who's part of our team, whose child is giving her trouble today, she said. So otherwise she'd be right up here with us, because Level inducted her into our team on our last live. So we're really happy to have her, and she does good work. And see, our intent is just to put out facts, faces, stop the misinformation, because we all know it harms cases. Definitely stop the bashing of families that are already victimized. I know that the law probably looks at everybody as guilty until they're proven innocent, because that's your job. But I like to look at things innocent until proven guilty. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I understand your viewpoint on how you have solved crimes, and that makes sense. But we are not law enforcement. We are not judges. We're not juries. We're trying to bring awareness and maybe prevention, getting off us all together and doing think tanks and doing what you're doing and pinpointing where they're at. Because see, I've looked into that and looked at areas, and it seems that the long lasting cases are usually cases that are by a highway, where they can be out of the state. Otherwise they're found, pretty soon. So at least that's what I've seen in the little time that I've been here. So,
well, and that's why I always say, like in Monkey's case, I've always said from day one, don't just be looking in Idaho for him, because he may be in Alaska by now, for all we know. And that goes for any of these kids. It's so easy to get them out of the area so fast, and perpetrators don't like to stick around where they committed the crime. They tend to flee. So that's why it's important, share these posters everywhere, not just and I mean, if you live in Idaho, great. But if you live in Arkansas, post a flyer up at your post office too.
Right.
You know, I didn't realize it until you just said that, but actually I can put at least Monkey's Case and Lena Sardarkiel's. They're both by major interstates, because Lena Sardarkiel was on 10, and then 84s, they're, running through Fruitland.
Look at this, Christine. Thank you so very much. I don't know why you say it's because of me you're doing this, but that is fantastic. And see, here's somebody who doesn't have a channel and just watches all of us, and she's going to do what she can. And we always say it. The best thing you can do for us and our channels and aware is share, right? Share it. Share everything we do. Share. I mean, like I said, the team here, Arctic is super video putter outer. I mean, he puts out, I don't know how many a day. We cannot keep up to him. We'll be on a phone call with him and he has 5 videos made while we're talking. So he's just the king of that. And, level, he's kind of that and kind of like putting us out in the masses. I'm kind of the legal side of things and, investigations, but now we got you for that. So we got a professional. So, we all have a little bit of something to offer. And I think our subs, which make our channels, and we wouldn't be here without them. The best thing they can do is share. You don't really even have to do nothing, just share to all the social media.
And the mods really make a huge difference in these channels too. But you've got to be careful who you select as your mod, because they can make or break your channel. They can go and delete comments off of your channel when you're unaware. They can block people. So that's one of the things I learned when I came to YouTube, when I started my channel back in February, is you've got to be real careful who you trust with that wrench on your channel.
Yeah, that's yes, I've seen, you're not even aware until you go into your settings to see. And if you want to go in your settings and see everybody that's blocked, that's fine. But most people don't even know they're blocked. They're still typing, thinking everybody's still watching them because it shows up for them, but it doesn't show up on the chat. So it is hard. And we have like our team as our moderators, so that's one way of working it.
Well,
Fox, you can get a video out in 2 seconds.
I had a bunch of moderators that on my channel, I didn't know what I was doing. And there was people that were getting blocked that I didn't even know. So I just went down and narrowed it down to like 1 or 2 people. And then as you get to know people and stuff, then you branch out a little bit. But I was telling Joe just earlier, there's always those bots that go into your comment section and leave stuff. She had a couple in hers the other day. And this was this morning, we were talking about it. And I went in there and deleted them for her because I'm a moderator there. And I saw them. They was brought up by another member of us that stays off camera and stuff that's in chat and helps us behind the scenes. And I just went in there and just took care of them and got rid of them. But some people use that for bad on people. They use a biased opinion or have an agenda. So it's something we know you're new to YouTube over there, sir. So we'll give you as many tips as we can.
Oh, I'm gonna make mistakes.
We all do.
Yeah.
We all do. Yeah.
I still make mistakes every day.
And subs, if you guys are in chat and you're noticing that nobody's saying hello to you, email the creator, because all of us, I know all of us, and generally your creators have their email on their about page. Let the creator know, because a lot of it, we don't know. We're so busy in the background investigating, working with our teams and networking, and that, we may not know. So please don't hold it against us.
And our messages really work together, become a community that has the same goals, and work together, because every one of us get along fine. And if it wasn't for our people in the back, and you all know who you are, thank you so much for everything you do for us, because you do a lot. And the subs, if without you, we wouldn't be here.
Exactly. If it wasn't for the subs, all we would be are people talking to ourselves in front of a screen. So.
And I do enough of that at home. Anything else, anybody? Any questions in the chat? true crime community. No missing in Georgia. You know better than that. It's a real crime community.
And
Anyways,
sarcastic.
yeah, Steve, I would love to thank you so very much for coming on here. We look forward to working with you in the future. And thank you for bringing your expertise to us. We really appreciate it. I'd like to thank my team for being here. Thank you, you guys. You know, I love you. And everybody in chat, please go sub to True Crime Web. You will not be sorry for that. You can see what kind of quality you're going to get. His channel runs a lot better than mine, but you'll see how it goes. And with that, I'm just going to say level.
See something? Say something.
Bye, everybody.